my coaching career, I would guess no better example of the old phrase, a tale of two halves, which is a cliche, a platitude, whatever we call those coach speak. But the numbers reflect it was as dramatic a tale of two halves as I can recall since I've been here, at least. And if I look back over the career, I can't really remember a more, a black and white kind of example of dramatically different halves. And as a result, we were fortunate at home to be able to pull away for the win. The concern would be if this was a road game in Big East and we came out in that manner, we might find ourselves down, 30 at Villanova. St. Mary's is a well-coached, disciplined team, and Waldo is as effective a big man as there is in his own deliberate, old-fashioned way. He just wears down opponents. But we were fortunate in the second half, I think, with our speed and quickness. Dom Pointer, was on his game defensively, and as a result, we were able to find a way to get a win tonight. So just proud of the young men. Now we got to get ready for Long Beach.
Steve, how important is it for you, considering you're so effective at getting up and down and being effective in transition, of developing a bench in case you do wish to maybe accelerate the tempo and press more when you get into league play? How important is developing those extra guys?
We'd like to have, an 8th and a 9th man confident, familiar with our schemes so they can contribute. And yet, this, group of, 6 or 7 has found a nice chemistry, and when we stay out of foul trouble, they're going to, play the majority of the minutes. That's our strength in terms of experience and the versatility of this group that's dominating the minutes. So, and Coach Herrick is actually here tonight with his wife, and we were just speaking in the locker room. And it's an old-fashioned approach, but if you have the right 7, let's say your 8th man is a zone buster or a backup big, or if there's big foul trouble, that sometimes it goes to 8, 8.5. But with the right 7, there's a strong case to be made that that's the best way to develop a team over the course of a season. But with that said, you're always trying to build your depth, and we have confidence in Miles Stewart and Felix Balamu and Omar, and Joey made contributions, Christian Jones, but it's tough to try and establish a rhythm and develop a team that has good chemistry and try and rotate 10 players. And this group is, similar to our first year. We really played 7, and occasionally Deli Coker, Malik Stiff, would get a couple minutes, but the majority was 7-man rotation. Poley started each half when he came out quickly. You had Evans and Booth coming off the bench. So it was really a 7, and this team kind of similar, experienced, and we're going with the 7 or 8-man rotation. But every week we challenge the players to step up and have productive practices to be able to earn more minutes, to build the confidence, build the coach's confidence to put them in games,
Steve, how do you get them to turn it around? How do you get a group that played so low energy and got beat in so many ways the first half?
Sure. I think it's the, there were a couple that I really felt our players were uptight. So that they cared too much, and that's, one element that I focused on is when you care, it's actually a healthy sign that sometimes creates anxiety and apprehension, and then you start to think, what we call paralysis from analysis, and that bucket gets smaller, and you tend to just get uptight. And so, the only way to get through that is turning up the heat defensively, and and trying to get a string of stops or shutouts, and then that leads to the runouts and force some turnovers, which will get us out in the open court, and to get on the offensive board, to get some putbacks, and to take the ball hard to the cup so we can get ourselves to the foul line and get to the double bonus sooner. And then we can chip away and try and kind of manufacture a win as we're able to tonight. But the focus was on there's no 15-point play. We're not going to be able to get it back in one possession, but if we slowly, grind this thing, we can crawl back into the game, and we were able to do that. So I thought earlier they're uptight, and then because they were uptight, we didn't really do what we wanted to do, at either end. And then we got in foul trouble, which compounded things, so it was very disjointed, and the tempo favored St. Mary's. But it wasn't as though it became an up-tempo affair in the second half. I mean, we shut them down, but it wasn't as though we were, what was our point total? 50.
14.
Yeah, it wasn't, we were closer to being on pace in the second half. But so I just think we kind of revisited what the keys to the game were, and we kind of got over the hump. The smelling salts are kind of snapped out of that funk. Sometimes that happens, you got to shake it off and get a reset and then move forward.
Did you figure that this group would be capable of doing that?
When you look at the schedule and you put W's and L's in the preseason, you never tell your team about it, but coaches do it. And, Coach Wood used to always do that, then put it in an envelope and then take it out in April and take a look at it. So maybe I started doing it because he did that. So there were combinations of 9-1, 9-2, undefeated. I mean, we felt we let Gonzaga slip away, and maybe if we beat Gonzaga, we lose one at Q's. You don't know. So it's an interesting thing. The Gonzaga loss probably helped us more than any other game because we really, some things were exposed in terms of our inability to contain the dribble. And late in that game, I think since then we've really improved at leveling off dribble penetration. But yeah, I mean, we have high expectations for ourselves, always higher than the fans have. We're always, we've always been picked 6th or 5th, or and so our goals are. But we're also, we also realize we've got a lot of work to do.
Does this game and the Long Beach State game kind of remind you of being in the tournament as a 3-4 seed at UCLA and playing a good 13-14 seed, almost as a barometer? Does it feel like around the 64 game?
I don't know in terms of the particular seedings, but quality opponents, on our home court. We're fortunate it's not a neutral site game, or it's not the NCAA, and yet we get to duplicate or simulate, some of the conditions you face if you're fortunate to be in the NCAA tournament. And in terms of short turnaround and playing teams with different styles, Long Beach wants to get up and down the floor, play at a much faster pace. They bomb threes, they change their defenses. St. Mary's very methodical, fundamental. They're not going to surprise and change you, but they're just so effective at what they do that they wear opponents out. They're the most successful, as you guys know, the most successful program in the Western United States over the last decade, more than Arizona, more than UCLA, more than Oregon, more than Gonzaga. They're actually the most successful program in the last decade. So we knew coming in we had a challenge on our hands, and we know Long Beach has been tested. They're going to be a challenge, and then we got to keep get ready for conference play where the biggest challenges are going to be